Hi everyone, I'm Hannah, and if you're watching this when it is released, just know that we are all going through it, and I've been having a particularly hard time. But YouTube has honestly been a real source of joy for me, so I decided to put on some lipstick and talk about books because I really truly love doing that. And what better topic when I'm feeling sad and lonely and emotional is to talk about my comfort books. So these are the books that I read, I reread when I'm feeling sad, when I just need some comfort, I need some familiarity. And that is what we're going to do today. I'm going to gush about my favorite books, the ones that have stood the test of time, that when I pick up again, just feel like coming home or saying hi to an old friend. So that is what today's video is going to be. So get ready for some gushing. So the first set of books I want to talk about are right here. That is Tamora Pierce's Tortall books, and specifically the Song of the Lioness quartet. And this quartet includes The First Adventure, In the Hands of the Goddess, The Woman Who Rides Like a Man, and Lioness Rampant. And you can see the spines of these are ripped and bent and cracked, and the pages are yellow and soft. You know how when books get old and worn, they get soft on the edges? This is yellow and soft, and they smell, I mean, they don't smell good, but they have that used book smell, that comforting smell. And obviously these books have been around for a while, and these are the covers from the 80s and 90s when these were first published. And I'm going to talk about why this series in particular, of all of Tamora Pierce's books, of which I've read, why this quartet is so meaningful to me. So in The First Adventure, we follow Alana, who is a twin, and her twin brother decide to change places because Alana does not want to learn how to be a lady. She wants to be a knight, and her brother does not want to be a knight. He wants to study magic. So the twins decide to switch places, and Alana cross-dresses or dresses as her brother to join knight school. And so throughout the series, she's training to become a knight. She's training to she's learning to use her magic and growing up. And these books in particular are important to me because they came into my life at a crucial time. I think I read these when I was 12 is when I first picked these up, and that is, I'd say, the perfect age for any kid wanting to read these. They're very middle grade, I'd say, and it's just about this really badass girl growing up and learning how to fight and be awesome. And this, if you read these books, Alana is a lot like me, and I saw myself in her. She has a temper when people attack or go after the ones she loves, and that's how I feel about myself. Sometimes I'm pretty passive. I don't get angry easily, but when I get angry, it's usually because someone is coming for my friends. And so these books are just so easy. Once, they're so easy to read, and two, they just remind me of that time, you know, when I was in middle school, growing up, going through puberty, and Alana was going through all those things too. So that is why this is on this list of comfort reads. Really, all of Tamora Pierce's books could be on here, but she's got like 30 books, and I had to pick one particular series just so I could get some kind of thumbnail. But really, these have stood the test of time for me, and I cannot count the number of times I've read them. The next book I want to talk about is kind of a strange one, and that is Firebringer by Clement-Davies. Now, stick with me on this one. If you haven't heard of this book, it is basically a story about the chosen one who has to save his people from an evil overlord, but it's with deer. Like, so all the characters are deer. They're, I think it's anthropomorphized. I think that's what that's called. And so this is a very classic story structure in which we have a chosen one, and he is growing up and finding his power, but he's a deer and his people are deer. And so it's a little strange, but honestly, it is so good, and it is such a good introduction into the fantasy genre. I read this, oh gosh, probably for the first time when I was 12 or 13, and I was really getting into fantasy, and this was just so fun to read about deer that were going on adventures and kind of behaving like humans, but also like deer. So it's this really interesting combination. I reread this last summer, and I was worried. It was one of those things where I was worried about the reread, because I was like, well, I remember loving this, and I'd read it a few times when I was younger. And so picking it up as an adult, I was like, is this gonna hold up? And honestly, it does. It did for me. I started reading it and I was like, oh my God, this is such a classic story, and it just feels good. It feels good to read this. And again, it's got, you know, this is the old copy, so the spine is a little wrecked. It's soft. The front cover has been bent, and it feels so soft, and it's kind of yellow. And also the print is absolutely tiny. Tiniest little print. This is the mass market paperback edition, and there's 500 pages in this book. But I remember picking it up and just absolutely devouring it the first time I read it, and reading it last summer really brought me a lot of joy, and it reminded me of that time again, and reminded me what it was like when I didn't read a lot of fantasy. So if you're looking for like an introduction to fantasy to maybe a middle schooler or a young adult, like, I honestly recommend this one. This is a lot of fun. Okay, the next set of books I want to talk about are Garth Nix's Sabriel, Lirael, and Abhorsen. Now, you can see Lirael and Abhorsen are pretty beat up, but this looks fairly new. That is because my original copy of Sabriel, it died. To put it mildly, the first 40 pages fell out. So my friend who was reading it at the time actually bought me a new copy, and I kept the map from the original book. So I was able to take out the map from the original book, and now I stick it and use it as a bookmark when I'm reading this. But the other copies of this series are again well loved, used, torn, and I absolutely love them. So this series is set on a continent where there is a wall bisecting the continent, and in the north is the Old Kingdom, and the Old Kingdom is where magic thrives, and below the wall is Ancelstier, and magic doesn't work in Ancelstier. Technology works in Ancelstier, so you've got these two kingdoms next to each other. And in the first book, Sabriel is born in the Old Kingdom, but her father sends her to Ancelstier to grow up and learn, because the Old Kingdom is dangerous. There are lots of magical creatures, and the dead keep rising. So Sabriel's father is a necromancer whose job is to put down the dead, that the evil necromancers like to resurrect to, you know, impose their will. So while Sabriel's father is out and about doing his duty to protect the Old Kingdom, Sabriel is in Celestier learning. But at the beginning of the book, her father sends her a distressing message, and she has to go and rescue him. And she ventures into the Old Kingdom basically for the first time on her own. This is, again, another classic tale of adventure and growing up. And this is more young adult, I'd say. And I originally read this book via audiobook. So my first experience with this story was via audio. And if you don't know, the audiobook narrator for Sabriel is Tim Curry, who has an absolutely phenomenal voice, and his acting with all the characters is truly remarkable. And that, when I read these books physically, I hear Tim Curry's voice in my head, and it's just so comforting to pick these books up and remember and hear that voice in my head. And I remember reading these with my sister. With my older sister, she was the one who introduced me to these. So whenever I pick these up, I not only think of that time in my life, but I also think of my sister. And that brings me a lot of joy and a lot of comfort. And I wanted to call out Lirael in particular. Like, this is Sabriel, this is the first book. But the second book, Lirael, is maybe even more meaningful to me because I relate to Lirael as a character a little bit more. Lirael is really introverted, and she feels very alone, and she loves her dog, and she loves books. So I remember relating to Lirael and her sadness and her story a lot. So I just wanted to call that out and gush about how much I love this trilogy and yeah, how much it means to me, and I cannot wait to physically read these again. I love these copies. I don't want to get new copies. The new copies are beautiful, the ones with the redone cover, but I can't, like, it was hard enough repurchasing this. It was hard enough getting, you know, having to say goodbye to my original copy of this. But yeah, this is a really precious one to me. All right, all of those books I read when I was pretty young, so probably around 12 or 13 was when I was first introduced to those last few stories. This next set of books are from when I was a little bit older. I think I was 14 or 15, tail end of middle school, and that is Graceling and Fire by Kristen Cashore. And to this day, I absolutely love rereading these books. So Graceling follows the story of Katza, and in this land, there are people who have two different colored eyes, and those people have basically enhanced abilities, and they're called graced, or they have graces, which is why they're called Gracelings. And Katza's grace is killing. So we're following Katza as she is trying to find her way in the world and create her own fate. In the beginning of the story, she is under the rule of her wicked king uncle, and she does basically whatever he tells her to do because she's a, you know, tool. She uses her grace to, like, terrorize people on his behalf, and so throughout the story she's trying to find her own way and go on an adventure. And this is great. And Fire is like a companion to Graceling, so you can read them out of order, but I recommend them in publication order. So Graceling and then Fire. Fire follows a woman who is part monster, and so in this kingdom, there are certain animals who have like a mutation where they are brightly colored, So for example, like a rat will be bright yellow instead of its normal gray. And those mutated animals are called monsters, and they actually have magical powers to mesmerize their prey so that they can kill them. Well, Fire is part monster, so she has fire hair. Her hair looks like it is fire, and this is again a story of Fire kind of making her way through the world and falling in love, finding her way, falling in love, and learning to love herself. And I think that's the most important thing about both of these books, about both Graceling and Fire, is about these two women who are going on an adventure and, you know, finding some romance, but they also learn to love themselves. And time again, I end up going to Graceling and Fire to experience that story again and be reminded of how important it is to forgive yourself and to love yourself. And I cannot wait to read Winterkeep, which is book 4 in this series. It has been 8 years, almost 9 years in the making for another book in this series to come out, and I just cannot wait to make room in my heart for more books in the Graceling realm. I can tell this video is gonna be long because when you start talking about your favorite books, I just start gushing, and it's hard to articulate why you love something. It's just like, I love it, it's great. Like, and that's all you can say is oh my gosh, it's great, read it. And I'm sure I'll get better about talking about why I love a book, but for now I'm just gonna gush because it's making me really happy, and I'm glad I'm doing this today and filming this video. So we're on the last 2 books now, and I might as well talk about them together. They are, and I did recently talk about them in my 2020 review video, and they are Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and so Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And now these are in a similar category of I read them last year and immediately reread them. And upon reread, I was comforted, and I was just, it was such a happy experience to reread these books, even though I had just read them. Like, ended the book and immediately started it again. And that was such a fun time for me. So these are both romance books, and again, this is another experience for me where I hadn't really read a lot of romance, if any, in my life, and it kind of floored me at how much I could love this genre and these types of books, and I'm really glad that I found them and loved them as much as I did. So these are just 2 examples of recent reads that have become favorites of mine. And, you know, Get a Life, Chloe Brown is about Chloe Brown, who has fibromyalgia, and after a near-death experience, she decides to upend everything and start living her life and kind of creating a bucket list for herself. And she gets to fall in love. And Red, White, and Royal Blue is about the son of the first female president of the United States and the Prince of England falling in love. And just reading about these characters and their love story is just so precious to me. I'm a big softie at heart, and you know, I should have known by the stack of books that romance in genre fiction I really get behind, and so this was my first endeavor into romance as a genre on its own and how meaningful and beautiful that can be. And so I'm really appreciative and thankful for these 2 books, and I cannot wait to reread them. I think I read each 3 or 4 times in 2020. And in 2021, I'm like, okay, how long has it been since I last read one of these 2? And so hopefully, maybe you'll be seeing it hopefully you'll be seeing these two pop up in a future wrap-up video of mine. But I truly love these as an adult, and hopefully we'll love them in the future. I have no idea if this video has been coherent in any way at all. This is just me gushing about my favorite books of all time and my comfort reads. And I just want to say that if you're having a hard time right now, I'm here for you. I hear you. We are all having a rough time. We all have our own struggles, and I find I get a lot of comfort out of these books, and I hope that you can find similar peace and comfort, whatever that means to you, if it's through media, if it's through self-care in some other way. I hope that you find something that works for you and makes you happy during this time. I really do. And maybe you'll pick up one of these books that I love so much and you will love it too, and we can gush about it together in the comment section. So thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna go, and I hope you all can find some peace during this time. And thank you so much for watching this video. I will talk to you in my next one. Bye.